Well, welcome back. This is the Morning Brushback episode 52. We are here live once again after 3 pre-recorded episodes, which were pretty good quality, I think. Bob, how would you rate the pre-recorded non-live quality?
I mean, better than anything I've ever done on the podcast. Plus, we had good guests. We had really good guests. So that made up for whatever lack of quality we might have had.
If we had just recorded you and I, it would have been trash. It would have been just a trash week and a half.
Nobody.
Other people carry the load. Ryan Copeland and Liam Bowen from my alma mater. So
we had two pitching guys to join my extensive pitching knowledge on the show.
Well, we need to balance it out. We had so much hitting garbage for forever, just old men yelling at clouds.
It was.
So now we're back.
Glorious
pitching side.
Glorious hitting talk. I'm all for the pitching stuff. I've got 5. I think what do I have? 5 2/3 innings on the mound professionally. I'm in there. I'm in the position player pitching Hall of Fame.
Well, that's just simply not true. So today, in our episode today, we're going to go over unwritten rules in baseball, including: do you swing 3-0 when you have a little bit of a lead, a la Fernando Tatis Jr.? Stealing with the big lead, taking the extra base, such as a pass ball with a big lead, bunting on a no-no, throwing at hitters, what's the right and wrong way to do it. We'll talk a little bit about some home run stuff, and then an amateur baseball specific one, the time clock. So should you have a mound visit when there's like 7 minutes left to go in the game? People get pretty heated about that stuff. So we'll also talk a little bit about, Bob, you had some stuff about seeing pitches, how important it is to see a lot of pitches in a bat, stuff like that. So we'll cover that as well. But let's start off with Fernando Tatis, since we were away for this big news. But swinging 3-0, I commented a little bit about this on Twitter. What's your take on Tatis swinging 3-0?
Loved it. Loved every second of it. First of all, it's bases loaded. So you don't – there's no reason not to swing. I have not actually heard that unwritten rule, like specifically as far as not swinging 3-0. I mean, I guess it's a specific scenario where the bases are loaded. So it's not like there's anywhere to put the guy. But no, I mean, swing 3-0, like all the at-bats count. If he strikes out after getting the 3-0, like that strikeout still counts.
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
I think in the major leagues, almost everyone came to his defense. I'm not sure there were many people on social media or anywhere else. Not that social media is the high court here, but I didn't see anyone be like, "Yeah, what a jerk! That was so modern baseball." Like,
well, who got mad at him?
No one said that.
Was it the manager of the other team that got real pissed off at it?
I heard it was both managers. So,
well, his manager I saw didn't stick up for him. I mean, that's
no.
If you're Tatis, I mean, that's it right there, right? Like, you're not going to stick up for me after I'm winning you ball games. I'm saving your job in a city that never wins. I'm arguably the MVP front runner, and you're not going to defend me, or at least stick up for me a little bit. Like, he lost the locker room right there, I think. Like, you had, especially with big personalities like Tatis and Machado in that locker room, like, they run the show there. This manager, I don't even know what the manager's name is, but he is not they're not taking his personality on the field. Like, they're taking those two guys. So if you lose those two guys, you might as well pack your bags and leave.
Well, I don't think anyone even knows. Does anyone even know who the Padres or care who the Padres manager is? He's just like Johnny Pencil Pusher. Like, who cares?
Well, that's the point. It's like,
it's not Tony La Russa. Yeah.
No, you want to keep that job. It's like you're not going to back your MVP candidate when he didn't even. I mean, I could see if he like threw at somebody's head. If he threw at somebody's head, or if he's a pitcher, throws at somebody's head, hits him in the helmet, you could say, "Look, we're not trying to hurt anybody." Blah blah blah. This kid swings at a 3-0 pitch that you lay in there. Like, screw it. I'm going to hit it 500 feet.
Well, and what was weird was it was only 10-3. It's not like the game is completely out of hand. Like a 2-run jack by the other team the next inning, it's 10-5. That's like it's not a laugher anymore. And 7 runs is like whatever. But also that pitch was not center cut. It was like outer third and like down. Like you could see.
Nice swing.
I mean, yeah, it was not easy to hit for him to. I mean, he knew a fastball was coming, obviously, but beyond that, it wasn't like again, belt high right down the middle. It was on the outer third. And if it's like 1-2 count, that might be a ground ball double play, right? And he had to go Oppo Taco on it. You know, he didn't even pull it. He didn't even pull it. It's
what's
weird.
What's the narrative?
Weird.
What's the narrative if he pops out? Is everyone still pissed off at him? Or is everyone saying, oh, he's an idiot for swinging 3-0? Like, no, who cares?
They say he's dumb. Yeah, it's his risk.
They
say he's dumb. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. With a 3-0 pitch, the outcome is not certain. Like, it's not like stealing third with a 10-run lead, where they're just like, we know you're not going to throw, and I'm just going to get third base for free. 3-0 pitches, like, the outcome is not certain at all. It's probably a 60% chance he mashes it because he's a major leaguer and he knows a fastball's coming. You know, like, but at the same time, that's not a certain outcome. You could just miss it and fly out. You could hit a scorcher right to center fielder.
Yeah. If you're mad about it, then put him on first base. Like, the dude's the best hitter in the National League right now. If you're not, if you're afraid that he's going to swing or you're afraid that he might do some damage against your pitch, then put him on base. Like, whatever. That's far down the list of quote unquote unwritten rules. Yeah. If that is one. I mean, I'm not, again, I never swung 3-0. Like, I've never in my career swung 3-0, but I also wasn't up there like putting balls, you know, oppo off the scoreboard 3-0. So I'm better off on first base stealing second than I am trying to hit an opposite field bomb 3-0. But that's me personally. So I would never swing 3-0, but whatever. You want him to take, then give him the take sign, manager.
Well,
what the hell?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the unwritten rule isn't really towards the other team. Like, I grew up with thinking 3-0 is just like an automatic take because you want to walk and get the free base. It has nothing to do with the other team. It was never about showing up the other team. It was just about the fact that, I mean, take your chances walking here and then swing it 3-1. But yeah, because it's risky. Like, it's a strange move when you're that far ahead, when you have a pretty high likelihood of getting a free base, to then just like take a cut. But where I would say that this would be disrespectful is if it's a really mismatched youth game. Because I've seen this before. You've probably been in this too, where you play like, you know, you have a 14U team and your team's tiny and you're just getting mashed by a team that's really big for their age, whatever it is, right? It's like a 10-1 in the third inning and your pitcher's struggling to throw strikes and he's just throwing grenades up there and it's 3-0 and the dude just hits a wiffle ball home run. It's like, come on, dude. Yeah. Like, you're swinging out of your shoes. Like, when the swings change and it's like, I'm playing wiffle ball against your team now because we're so much better than you. That's when it gets a little, But even then, you don't stop playing. I think it changes. That's where it feels different.
I think it changes even a little bit if the bases aren't loaded. Like, if you walk him, he still gets an RBI. So, like, why not swing? Plus, money in baseball, like, you can't. Yeah, I saw this argument a few times from guys, and they're like, look, 1 home run and 4 RBIs. Like, if he's in a shortened season, like, this dude's putting up numbers, he's going to get paid exponentially more. Mm-hmm. Like, even his arbitration years are gonna be affected by. I know it's not 1 home run and 4 RBIs isn't going to make your arbitration year, but it's not hurting his argument. So swing away, dude. You don't want him to hit it, walk him. Like, or throw a strike. If it was a 3-1 count, no one's arguing. Like, we're mad that the pitcher sucked so bad in the first 3 pitches that this guy decided to swing. Like, he was ready to swing the first 3 pitches. Maybe they should have given him something better to hit or made a better pitch in the first 3.
Agree. So
like, it's not like this.
Let's go to stealing. So when you have a big lead, when should you shut down the running game? Or should you ever? Let's start with Major League Baseball first. Because it's different than youth baseball. Yeah,
it's definitely different. I mean, once you get past being up more than there are innings left, if that makes sense. So if you're in the 5th and you're up 6 runs or 7 runs, I don't know. There's not really an exact science, I think. But once you get to
because it could be the 8th inning, there's 1 inning left and you're up 2.
Yeah, that's a bad. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the number.
It's probably 6 runs if it's like the 8th or 9th. And it's probably like 8 runs if it's in the middle of the game.
If you're up by more than one, if you're up by more than 1 swing of the bat, 7, 8 runs. I mean, again, it's like by discretion, right? If the score's 15-8 in the sixth, like, yeah, you're probably still playing the game because everybody's swinging the bats really well.
Yeah.
If the score is 10-0 in the fifth, then you're probably okay. Let's calm it down. But I think it depends on the score. I mean, there are unwritten rules. Like, you're not trying to embarrass the other team by taking extra bases on a ball. You know, that's a questionable, maybe like double or triple. Like, you get your stand-up double, just take it. You get your routine base hit, you keep it. You're not trying to take extra bases. But again, playing hard, like, it's hard to tell a guy not to play hard because the guy's still trying to get you out. Like, that's the whole thing. Is hitting is so hard. It's tough to tell you guys, like, okay, take a pitch, or guys that make their money stealing bases, like, hey, don't steal a base, even though this guy's a 1-9 to home plate. But I agree that, like, the unwritten rule is if you're up by so many runs later in the game, sixth inning on, you don't take the extra base. You tone down your aggressiveness. You score on balls you're supposed to score on. You take the bases you're supposed to get, and then that's it.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. Like you said, I don't think you stop playing. I mean, if you're a guy that could make a double, a triple, like if you're a Billy Hamilton, you hit with a gap, I think you still take your triple. I don't think you just pull up necessarily, but you can for sure.
Right.
Yeah, you don't stop playing the game because that's insulting too. Like the whole. So let's go to youth baseball. When do you shut down the running game at youth baseball?
When you're I mean, it's almost like you have to gauge the other team. Like you said, if you're playing a team you're just overmatching them, like, just go base to base. I think because there is a run limit, so it's usually like 15 after 3, 12 runs after 4, 10 runs after 5, something similar to that, 12, 10, 8. So if you're close to that, or if you're past the run rule, you stop running completely. Like, if you're already past the run rule, stop running. Now, the one thing I do understand when coaches are like, look, we're trying to get to the run rule to save pitching, because it's not, if it was just like a league game, then you stop running. If you're in a tournament where some of these tournaments will run 7, 8 games to win it, I get trying to shorten the game, and you can't argue with the coach trying to do that, because you just can't carry enough pitchers to get through 7 inning games in a 3-day span. Like, you just don't have enough bodies. So if you can shorten a game to 4 or 5 innings here or there, you probably do it. I don't have an issue with teams doing it. I have an issue with teams that are like stealing third, like taking home when they're already up 15, 16, 17 runs on you, which happens a lot in youth games because defense is just not played very well.
Yeah, and if the other team just like can't block the ball and the ball just keeps going to the backstop, you feel like you should take the base because that's the way the game's played. But then again, you're like, let's just stay put after a while. I don't know.
You stop them at third
usually.
Stop the kids at third base. Like, if the ball gets passed, like, okay, we'll stay here. Like, drive them in.
Make them bat the ball in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been situations where we've been winning. Like, we've been winning by a lot, where I'll tell guys like, hey, we're either taking a pitch, or like, sometimes, I mean, I remember being in a game where it's like they're struggling so bad on the other team. Like, look, we're not swinging. Like, if he strikes you out, he strikes you out. We won't count the stats. Okay, we're just trying not to, like, you're going to hit the ball 500 feet off this kid. Like, he doesn't even look like he's pitched before. Let's just let him strike you out, whatever. And that, to me, that feels like disrespectful towards the game, but you're trying to not embarrass like the other team as well, because they are kids. In a college game or something, I would never suggest doing that. But there's instances where that's happened.
It just sucks when the game completely breaks down. I don't mind a team getting embarrassed. Like, if you don't like getting embarrassed, then I don't know, take that feeling home in your pocket and change something up or quit. Like, I don't think we need I don't want to protect self-esteem, but when the game just gets out of hand and messy, like, base to base is fine. But yeah, the whole, like, I don't know, not embarrassing them thing is kind of iffy for me. I think sometimes you need those.
Yeah,
this is where we are. This is where we are. Like, that
some of the unwritten youth rules that set me off are like the 3-0 fake bunt. That sets me off big time. Or like I don't know.
Well, let's
I
talk
guess
about
this guy's like,
the time limits, because that was a good point you brought up, which is the you have to consider not just winning this game, but winning the tournament more is like the overarching thing. So when you're talking about, yeah, we're going to steal up 9 runs because we want to get to the 10-run rule or 12-run rule or whatever, and in this game so we can save our pitching, that's a move that makes sense given the whole scope of the tournament. It
right.
doesn't make sense given the scope of just one game. So you do have to think of it more of that way. If you only think of it as far as this one game in a tournament, you're just not playing the strategy correctly. So you're right there that stealing up 10 runs in a tournament where it potentially shortens the game, saves you pitching, unfortunately, that is okay. Like it's fine because you have to, again, you're trying to win the tournament, not just the single game. And the time, let's talk about the time limits, because a lot of these tournaments have pretty much all of them have time limits. It's, whether it's hour 45 or 2 hours, 2:15. When it gets close, do you forego mound visits if you're winning, or do you not?
I mean, it's all about the timing of the mound visit, right? Like, has a guy been out there for a while and you need to go out there to give him a breather? Or did you ask the umpire how much time we have left before we can start a new inning? And he says, 5 minutes. I mean, a lot of times umpires will be good. Like if it's right on the cusp and it's a close game, they're like, all right, we'll run another one because like that was a quick inning. But obviously, like if the innings are taking long and you're just out there stalling, like you go take a mound visit and you make the umpire come and get you and you said nothing. And then you wait one pitch and then go take the guy out and replace him with a new pitcher. Like there are starting to be some rules about mound visits. And I think if we're in a time limit inning, maybe they should implement like, look, a mound visit is you pull them. Like that's it. No talking. If you're going to go,
Yeah, I
you
don't
pull them.
I disagree with that because I still will have a mound visit if it's necessary. So if we're up to, this is a situation we were in last summer. We were up 2-1 in like the 7th, and it was definitely like this is going to be the last half inning, and they did just like axe innings, but we got a runner on, and it was like the tying run on base, and there was like some legit strategy stuff that I need to talk to our pitcher about, like how to approach this pitcher. This is a critical moment in the game. I'm taking a mound visit, and I'm going to talk to my guy, and I'm going to explain this is a situation. This is how we're going to hopefully prevent that tying run from scoring. I'm not having that visit just because, some coach is going to, and the other coach did complain about it to me. It's like, I don't care. This was a legit part of the game.
There needs to be some kind of,
this is playing the game.
There needs to be a different rule. It can't just be like no new inning after an hour 45. There needs to be like, okay, once we start the 5th, like if we're close, they say, okay, this is the last inning. Like it can't be.
They do that in some, not all.
It can't be where you get to the bottom of the 5th and they're like, well, if we finish this inning in less than 7 minutes, we'll play another one. Like, because then you're going to get guys that stall, and they probably should stall. Like that's a good strategy, honestly. If you have to waste 7 minutes, it's a Bush League strategy, but it's still a strategy. Like we're talking strategy about, like you said, it's a big moment in a game. Well, like a big moment in a game might be, I don't want to waste this kid to close an inning when he could start the championship game for me. So I'm just going to stall. So I think there needs to be
but that's not
more control.
Part of like real baseball though. That's the problem. Like baseball.
Well, neither are time limits though. That's the whole point, right? Is like, there is no time limit on normal baseball. So if you're going to implement it, then there needs to be rules so guys can't manipulate it, like stalling, like passing the basketball around the court when there's no shot clock. It's like, oh, we're going to waste 4 minutes of a quarter just passing because the other team's going to run it down our throat. Like there needs to be a different set of rules for games that are timed, I think.
Well, I think the umpire just needs to go out. Just follow the guy out there. And if he's actually talking to his pitcher, great. If he's just BSing, then guys say, hey, visit's over. Get back to your dugout.
Yeah.
If he came out if he came out during my visit, we were having a legitimate conversation about what to throw to this hitter. He comes out to another one, the coach is just like, well, like you can tell they're just not saying anything relevant. And the other thing about youth sports is almost no coaches actually have legitimate mound visits, which is really bizarre because there are definitely guys that used to play baseball who coach these teams. And yet I see almost no strategy visits. I was, not to toot my own horn, I was one of the very few who actually took visits that weren't just like our pitchers throwing 40 pitches this inning. They were just like, nothing's necessarily wrong, but it's like second and third, 2 outs, and a pretty decent hitter's coming up. And I want to talk to him about how important it is to keep those runs from scoring. and how we can do that, even though it's not a critical point in the game. Like, that's a real thing. And no
Well,
one has visits like that. No one has visits like that. Like, hey, let's just to remind you, since it's second and third and 2 outs in the third inning, this is really important to strand these two guys. So we got to be really careful about not giving up a single. You have a base open. Maybe we start him off with something that's not your fastball. What is that going to be? Okay, maybe your changeup. And then if you miss, what are we going to come back with? Just having a conversation like that where they can say, okay, this is how we're going to pitch. I'm just not going to try to get ahead with a fastball like I might normally. You have to remind kids of the situation. And those are pivotal, because if you give those 2 runs on a silly pitch call in the third inning, they can come back to be the difference maker later on, you know?
I got the solution.
Okay.
Clock stops on all mound visits. Boom, done. Game clock stops on all mound visits.
I mean, that's fine. I agree. That seems fine.
Like soccer, like kick the ball out of bounds. Nope, clock stops. We got injury time.
Stoppage time. Yeah.
Yeah, we got injury time. We just solved all youth baseball problems.
Or every home plate umpire gets a rabid raccoon, and he just brings that with him. You're not talking
helper dog.
Lets it go. How about bunting on a no-no? How do you feel about that?
Absolutely not. Unless no, I take that back. If it is a 1-run game, it's okay. If it's 1-0 in the 7th and you're Billy Hamilton, it's okay to bunt to get on base.
So because that's a game where you could win it. Okay.
I think it's got to be a 1-run game. I think even 2 runs, you got to swing the bat. Out of respect for the pitcher, you got to swing the bat. Because he's, you play the baseball game. But a 1-run game, I mean, if you're on base, then anything can happen. Yeah. So I think that's where the line in the sand is. If it's 5-0. So my last year with the Orioles, it was the top of the 9th. We're playing the Braves. This is actually a pretty good story. We're playing the Braves. Run around third, 2 outs. We're down 5-0. So it's the top of the 9th. We're on defense. And their guy lays down a bunt, gets an RBI, gets a hit, makes the game 6-0 now. So that's an unwritten rule, right? Like, you swing the bat, you're up 5. We're not trying to pad stats, get, our third baseman's playing way back, whatever. I get into as soon as he crosses first base, I'm playing second base. I'm in his face yelling at him. Our manager comes out. He ends up getting tossed, yelling at him. It's like a benches clearing type thing. And then 3 days later, I took my release from the Orioles and went to the Braves, and I was on this same team. So the same team, I basically caused a little, a half benches clearing brawl. I was in the locker room, just sitting there, bright and early, coming back from I think it was All-Star break. So I'm sitting there. I'm the first one in there, and just everybody that's walking in is like, "Oh, what's up?" I'm like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going?" I mean, their manager and their third base coach brought me in the office, and they're like, "Look, we agree with you. Like, everybody kind of agree with you. Like, that's something you're not supposed to do. Up 5-0 bunt. Like, we thought it was great. I don't feel like you're out of place." But I felt a little out of place. Definitely. But that's a situation where you can't bunt. Like, you can't give yourself an RBI single on that. You have to swing the bat.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. Yeah, because it's winning the game versus the intent of this is just to break up the no-no. Those are 2 different things. Yeah. How do you feel about home run stuff nowadays? Guys are
I'll tell you what.
Stuff. They added their own little flair. They watch it out of the box a little bit longer.
I think my stipulation is, as long as you round the bases at a respectable pace, I don't care what you do when you hit it. Like Sammy Sosa, every time he hit a home run that year, the span of years he hit 60. I mean, he hopped like 3 big hops out of the box. That's very flashy, but he ran the bases. Like, he ran around, touched home plate, whatever. It's the guys, I think, that hit it, flip their bat, and then take 30 seconds to round the bases, as if like we're all going to sit here and watch that. Like, it's one thing to hit it, pimp it. And I'm sure pitchers are kind of like, I'm sure a lot of pitchers don't notice the pimp job because they watch the ball, like they turn and see the ball fly. But then when you've got to watch him jog at a snail's pace around the bases, I think that's when you're like turning the knife. It's one thing to stab the guy with the home run. It's another thing to turn the knife and really emphasize it. So I'm all for pimp it, hit a home run, do whatever, bat flip it, but at least jog around the bases. Like give me a decent pace. That's my I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Line.
comparing it to football where they seem to celebrate on every play, which I think is excessive and unnecessary. It's like, do you have to really celebrate after every sack, like every tackle? It seems unnecessary, but the football celebrations are not about the other team. Like they're clearly not about like rubbing it in that guy's face. It's just like the linemen are celebrating together that they got a sack, right? It's the wide receiver celebrating that he scored a touchdown. It's not like disrespecting you. It's not like he's running and taunting them. Like I get there's a penalty for taunting now, but they don't really seem like that's what they are. They're just like a show of happiness or whatever. And in baseball, it's really become the same thing. Obviously, there are times when, you throw at a guy and later he gets a bomb off you and he pimps it down and there's clearly like a message, which is fine if it was like a tit for tat.
I like it.
But most of these today, guys just hit the home run and they stand there for a second. They watch it and they throw their bat. And it's not really, I mean, it's just like the cancel culture on the web. It's just like Twitter. As a pitcher, if you let it offend you, if you make it about you, then you get fired up. But like Madison Bumgarner a couple weeks ago where he was chirping at everybody and throwing like meatballs down the middle of the plate. It's like, you just got to pitch better, dude, and stop worrying about the hitters, right? Like it's not about you. They're not out there to show up Madison Bumgarner. They're just hitting dingers off Madison Bumgarner. Like, what do you want? Like, what are you going to do?
A lot of these are situational though, because if you're down 10-1 and you hit a solo shot and you pimp it, like, dude, drop your bat and run because you guys are getting your ass kicked. Like they're definitely situational. If it's tied and you hit the go ahead home run and you want to flip your bat, cool. Like I think the pace around the bases is a staple. Like if you're going to hit a home run, keep a decent pace. But if you're losing by a lot or you hit a home run that is meaningless to your team, there's no need to, it's not a me game. Like it's really not an individual game where, you hit a good shot like in golf and you can celebrate it. Like you're losing by a lot, dude. Your team is getting their ass kicked. Like there's no need to put the guy behind you in jeopardy. Like if the pitcher takes it the wrong way where he's going to wear one in the back, which is an unwritten rule that doesn't seem to get used as much, is protecting your own players as pitchers. I forget what it was. It was like a couple weeks ago where a guy got hit and he said something to the media like, I wish I would have been like one of my guys would have protected me. And like, basically if you get hit, you expect your pitcher to retaliate in some form and hit somebody on their team, not maliciously, but like, let them know like, hey, we're going to protect our guys. And you're a pitcher. So, I'm sure you've been in situations where guys in the dugout were like, somebody better protect me. Somebody better protect, so-and-so after getting hit twice in a game or something. So I think that's one that never gets brought up because it's violent, I guess. It's more of a violent showing in a baseball field, but I'm all for you hit somebody, one of your guys gets hit. You hit my best player, like your best player is going to wear one at some point.
Hammurabi's code.
Hey, I got my pitcher. if you put me on the mound, I'll do it. I got great accuracy.
Well, there is something to be said. I mean, this is a greater philosophy, but in one of the books I read recently, they were talking about how back in the day, even for simple things, like you were held accountable. So I can't remember what time period this was in history, but if you're building a house for someone and that house collapsed on them and it killed their son, your son was going to be killed in retribution.
What?
Or if it collapses and kills the owner, then you would be killed. Some serious attention to detail if you're building that house, right?
Yes.
If you're building a house for me and I pay you $300,000 and I get to legally murder you if it collapses and kills one of my family members, you're going to double check and dot all of your I's and dot all of your lowercase J's, and you're going to cross all your T's. It's going to be a very well built house.
There's no way I'm building a house if that's the rule. If that's the law, I'm not building a house. But I agree with that. You would figure out
how to build it. I mean, houses don't fall down on people very often.
Yeah. I don't disagree with the eye for an eye type thing though.
there used to be a thing, I can't remember when, I feel like it was in Britain. I'd have to look it up in the book, but they said that when architect built the bridge, he would have to stay under the bridge for a couple of days after it was complete. Just like, it's going to fall, bro. It's on you.
Good luck. Good luck. That'd be so scary. I'd be so nervous.
So I don't know. The tit for tat thing is a legitimate deterrent if it's something serious. Like if you hit my guy, I'm gonna hit one of your guys.
Well, I think it holds guys
a real
accountable.
thing.
It holds guys accountable on your own team. Like, you know,
Yeah,
if
I don't want to get hit for you, dude. Stop doing that. Stop doing that, Bobby. I'm gonna get hit. That's legitimate. Just
that's
like in
very
college,
legitimate.
If we showed up, I remember I did this once. I showed up, I didn't have my practice shirt when I was a freshman. Just forgot to stuff it in my bag. And coach didn't make me run. He made everyone else on the team run. I had to watch them. It's a great
good
punishment,
though. That's a great punishment.
Yeah, because you're begging them. They're like, just let me do it. Just let me run instead of them. They're like, nope. And you learn because they're all mad at you. And that's the same thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's huge in a locker room where, you know, you got a pitcher who decides like, oh, this guy showed me up a little bit, so I'm gonna dot the next hitter. And then, I mean, someone like Mike Trout, like, you know, he's the one that's going to get hit. Like, if Mike Trout's on your team, like, he's the one that's going to get hit. They're going to make it a point. If the situation calls for it, like, hey, 2 outs, nobody on, Mike Trout comes up, like, he steps in the box knowing, like, this SOB is going to get me hit. Like, I'm going to get pegged. And it's not fun. Like, getting hit is, even if they hit you in the ass, in the buttocks, it's not fun. Like, nobody wants to get pegged. So, and it's an uncomfortable, because what if he doesn't peg you and he strikes you out because you're nervous about getting hit? It's just a bad at bat all around. Pitchers.
Agree.
It's all about
so I think that covers,
pitchers.
Yeah. So I think that covers all of it. Interesting stuff. I started listening to, as we transition here into plate appearance stuff, I started listening to another baseball book recently called The Bronx Zoo by Sparky Lyle. So I listened to Jim Bouton's book again, Ball 4, which we talked about. I listened to Jim Bouton's autobiography, which I found interesting, but not great. And then I started listening to The Bronx Zoo, which was written by Sparky Lyle, who was a manager in the Atlantic League.
Oh, yeah, legend.
He won a Cy Young and pitched for the Yankees back in their heyday with like Goose Gossage and all those guys.
Yeah.
His book, I returned it about 6 hours in. It was just an old man like talking about stuff that happened in baseball, which was very different somehow from Ball 4, which was a guy talking about what happened in baseball, but just from a much different perspective. I don't know. It was interesting, but it was just like, I've heard this before. It's just an old guy talking about how he pitched today and griping about certain players, but it just like it just lacked a character to it that Bouton's book did. Because Bouton stood for a lot of things and he had a lot of strong opinions, and they were unique opinions back then. But anyway,
and I like Sparky Lyle too. I mean, having met him and been around him for one season as a man, he was a manager emeritus, so he's always at the home game, shaking hands, signing autographs. Really good guy, really nice guy, like always in a good mood. I don't know how he would be as an author, but as a person, he's a really good guy.
Yeah, it's hard to say what it was that made it kind of flat for me, but I think part of it was just like, I don't know. With Ball 4, he is constantly a champion of like player rights, of minority rights. Like he spoke out for his black teammates a lot. And there was just like he just had a very different point of view and pointing out lots of stuff that was wrong about the game and things that should systemically change in baseball. And none of that stuff was like part of the Bronx Zoo. So I don't know. It just was like, I could listen to play-by-play of this 78 season or not, like, you know, either way. But Ball 4 was like a real, I don't know, more of a, I don't know how to describe it, but it was different.
Could be the what do they call the guy that writes the book for someone, like not like writes somebody's autobiography. Maybe it could have been the ghostwriter. Bad ghostwriter.
Well,
couldn't entertain it.
Yeah, well, and Jim Bouton's book was co-written. Like he wrote a good amount of it, but he had a co-editor named Lenny Schechter, so they were close friends. Lenny Schechter was a reporter. They became friends from him coming in the clubhouse and interviewing people. So they did the book together, but more of it was written by Fountain, and it was like shaped and edited and like made into a whole by Schechter. Whereas that was probably not as much the case with the Bronx Zoo. It was probably more of like actually ghostwriting it. And speaking of which, I have a somewhat pending tentative ghostwriting thing.
Really? For my
Yeah.
book, for my autobiography?
I don't think you'd be able to pay me enough.
I couldn't. Not even close.
No, it's a big undertaking, but it's for a friend. And so that's maybe going to happen sometime in the future. He's currently audioing all of his life stories so that I have them.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It'll be really
Yeah.
interesting if that continues to come to fruition, because he's just in that stage now where we got to like see what he's got, and then I would sort through it and write it. So
you're really taking on a lot of odd jobs nowadays, Dan.
Well,
podcasting for an aerospace company, right? Aerospace company, web design, the best baseball podcast on the web, then our podcast.
Lots of things. I'm starting to get more clinic inquiries. So I got a couple clinic inquiries recently for softball. So see if some of those get going again when and then I'll obviously put on my own as well. But
you've become the face of online softball coaching. No longer are you a baseball pitching guy. You are the face of online softball coaching.
Well, the softball industry for the throwing, there's one other guy who does throwing. I'm not going to mention his name because he's a huge dickhead. So I'm the other one that does it, but I'm the only one that actually puts out content. So I actually have lots of YouTube videos for softball throwing mechanics, which is something that's just like systemically never been taught well. I mean, they just taught the wrist flips and the things and all the new baseball science of pitching mechanics, which has come a long way, has not trickled down into softball. It just hasn't. Right. And so everyone's still teaching the drills they learned as a young kid or whatever when they were coaching or playing, whatever. So even high-level players in D1 softball throw terribly. Many of them throw terribly, but the field's so small, you get away with it. You don't get away with it in baseball. That's the fundamental difference. If you don't learn to throw properly, you will never play shortstop at even a varsity level.
No.
Certainly not in college. Certainly not in pro ball. But there's Division I players playing third base, terrible throwing mechanics, but they're like physical girls, so they can like still get over to first base at 55 miles per hour, and that's good enough to do the job essentially. But obviously if you threw 65, you can make a lot more plays even at the D1 level. So it's a really interesting thing. It's just like it just has not trickled down, and no one puts out stuff on the web except for me. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't know. It's just a niche that needed to be filled. So, but it's nice to help people because that's something it's like very rudimentary that can help people a lot. That's why I like doing it. Because softball girls have a lot to gain. There's lots of them who are like, I can only play second base. I wish I could throw better. I can only play second base. I would love to play the left side of the infield or the outfield, but they can't because they don't have the arm and no one knows how to teach their mechanics. So it's just like see them change a lot as players, and they get so much more out of the experience when they can play other positions because now they have an arm to make a throw from shortstop or make a throw from the outfield. So
it's funny you say that because the last few weeks I moved our teams, my youth program is moving into a new facility in Rosemont Dome. It's right next to the Chicago Bandits softball team, which is there's only 4 NPF national pro fast pitch teams in the US, and the Bandits have been like an inaugural team, whatever. But this year they're doing like a bubble league. I think it's called Athletes Unlimited, AU. So a lot of the girls were there working out before the league. The league actually started yesterday, I think was opening day. But you had a lot of girls there working out, like professional softball players. It's like a pool of 60 girls, and they draft teams and they just play like this bubble league, essentially 4 teams, whatever. And it's funny you say that because some of these girls are really, really good athletes. Like you could just tell when you watch them throw. I mean, they just look like straight athletes. And then some of them's throwing mechanics, it's unorthodox to say the least. It's like not a very strong, like I'm trying to decipher like what positions these girls might play as I was basically putting my weight room together. So I was right by the batting cages. So you watch the girls, like some of the girls warming up on the side, like down the line, and you see some of the girls swinging the bat, and some of them are hitting the ball real hard. And it's fun to watch softball because there's different philosophies on softball hitting. Like if you're a slap hitter, you got some speed, and then there's the girls that have some power. But then I watch them like do a little bit of defensive practice, and like you said, it's a wide range of throwing mechanics, and you really don't get that with baseball. Like if you 99% of the guys in the big leagues, like the best players in the world, have good throwing mechanics and very strong arms. Like with the I wouldn't say that percentage is nearly the same. I mean, if there were 15 girls working out, I can picture 3 or 4 that had mechanics that were like I was drawn to their mechanics because it was unorthodox. So you're probably right. I mean, like if that's a professional level, right? Like 60 of the best players in the world, Kat Osterman's in the league, like girls that you would recognize from the Olympic team. It's probably very rampant throughout college baseball and definitely youth softball. I'm sorry, college softball and youth softball, like bad mechanics.
Well, it has to get better at the higher level, I'm sure. But I saw some like mid-tier D1 games, mid and lower tier, just here in the Northern Virginia area. And those are, like a team like Georgetown, just any of those teams that are probably like 150 RPI, 200 RPI, something like that. Yeah. And half the team has what you'd say were mechanics that they could not play D1 baseball if they were a boy, essentially. I think that's a decent analogy. Like they wouldn't be able to play with those mechanics. It wouldn't work. But they work at the softball field because it's just so much smaller. But it's about half. I mean, really half of them were like major glaring throwing flaws at the D1 level. But just they're physical enough. And of course, the more key positions like the shortstop, not as much. Like third base, they're getting the ball so close to, it's not a long throw like it is in baseball. They're charged up so much. It's often are like in their glove really fast. Obviously, second baseman, outfielders have better arms, but catcher, first, third, and second, pretty consistently very iffy arms. And you wouldn't think as much about catcher, but catcher too, yeah. And outfield is kind of a iffy.
Yeah, it was interesting that you say that. Now I'm thinking back watching these. These are the 60, probably the top 100 softball players in the world, all in one spot. And I saw, like I said, 12 to 15 of them working out daily, and there were some noticeable like arm, hitches. There's just some. It just looked like they weren't fluid enough to like how you think they would be.
Yeah, well, and the big thing that I talk about that no one talks about on the web is that at sidearm should be the number one throwing method in the infield for softball players. Like sidearm, just like it is in baseball. Like sidearm is like the default throw for an infielder in baseball. When they're in college or pros. Like, why would you throw it over the top when you've got it and you've got plenty of time? You're going to throw it sidearm. Or if you have a short throw, that's the quicker one, right? It's in your hand, it's out. And if you're charging it, it has to be sidearm or below sidearm. And softball is everything is fast. So fast is not get it and go over top because you can't do that. And if you're charging it, you can't get your shoulder tilt to actually throw over the top. That's why no one throws over the top when they're running. You can't actually tilt your shoulders. So that's why no matter, even if you're running slow, they always throw sidearm or below. But almost no girls throw sidearm in softball either as infielders, which is really strange. It's because they don't teach it. They think it's ineffective. Again, this is like the history of softball coaching. It's like sidearm is some devil that only it seems like the highest levels they get taught it very well. Yeah. Everywhere else younger, they're like, sidearm's not good. It's like they throw it wild. So yeah, they throw it wildly because they don't get taught it and they don't practice it. Like everything's bad if you don't practice it. So
yeah, no doubt.
That's the thing that I think that makes the most sense for the sport to change. Like softball, if every infielder learned to throw sidearm, it would fit the game much more because it's a game of short throws. So even in the outfield, because when you charge the ball as an outfielder, you're often getting it pretty close to the infield. Where then you have to like throw to second instead of third. You're like, here you go. Anyway, so let's transition. You want to talk about seeing pitches per plate appearance. You said the Cubs had something going on. Why don't you fill us in a little bit?
Yeah. So I had a dad send me an article talking about the Cubs, how the Cubs are seeing, I think it was like 4.22 pitches per plate appearance. I'm not sure if it was this year or last year. He was kind of asking like, how important is that? Like it didn't seem to make a difference with the team last year. They just struggled hitting all around. Like, so what is difference if they see 4 pitches in at bat, 1, 10? Like if you're struggling hitting, you're struggling hitting. And I also think it's probably an overrated stat, how many pitches somebody sees, but does it, like, I don't know if it doesn't correlate to being a good hitter, seeing a lot of pitches. It could correlate to being a patient hitter. It could correlate to being like a pesky hitter where you're fouling balls off, but I don't necessarily think it correlates to being a good hitter. I think this is what this dad was asking, like, how important is seeing pitches in an at bat? And I think at the professional level, it's probably more important strategically to see a few pitches, based on where you hit in the lineup, based on, what you know about the pitcher. But at the youth level, like college, high school, I think you have to, as a hitter who's younger, who probably doesn't have the back control and the experience of seeing breaking pitches or pitches of slower speeds. I think seeing pitches is totally overrated. If you get a good pitch, the first pitch of your at bat, like that's the one you need to take and put a good swing on. So I'm not sure I'm not sure if it correlates to being a good hitter, but I think at the younger levels, being aggressive early in the count and not getting as deep in the count is more beneficial as a hitter. And I always emphasize, like, look, you be ready to hit the first pitch, because the first pitch might be the best one you see. And usually you see, you teach a lot of young pitchers. There's a lot of guys that will get ahead first pitch fastball and then go right to off speed stuff for the majority of the rest of that bat. So this was coming from a high school dad. And my point to him was that I'm not emphasizing seeing pitches to him until he's comfortable hitting all types of pitches, which high school kids usually are not. They're not comfortable hitting curveballs, sliders, changeups. So I don't know, but when you had your academy, did you guys emphasize seeing pitches? Is that ever talked about? It was talked about a little bit in pro ball, but not as much as maybe it's emphasized now.
We talk about that walks are valuable. They're as valuable as getting a single, and being on base is the number one thing you can do to help your team. So the most valuable thing you can do, essentially, from like a run expectancy perspective, is not make an out. It's the best thing you can do. It doesn't matter what you do, just don't make an out is the best thing to help your team score. So if that's a walk, so be it. So we emphasize being selective and getting a pitch to drive, but the caveat is, if the first pitch is right down the middle, hit it. Like, you got to just know what your pitch is and then get it. So really, it's just like anything else. You're just like hunting for, like, if you're digging in a sandbox and you know that there's like 6 different little items, like little treasures in your sandbox, and you want the car. Well, just, if you take one scoop and the car's there, you're done. You don't want the other ones. If you have to scoop up all the other ones first and the car's last, so be it. It's kind of the same thing. So I wrote an article about, should you swing at the first pitch? Because I think in the dugout, sometimes teams get rah, and this was a talking point with me one day. One of our players was coming in like the 3rd inning. He's like, "Let's go, guys. Like, he's getting ahead early. We got to swing early. We got to get ready to swing on that first pitch." I'm like, why? Why get ready to swing on the first pitch? You have no idea if it'll be a ball or strike. No idea. And if it is a strike, you don't know if it'll be your strike. Maybe it's on the outer corner. Maybe it's on the inside. Like, you don't know until you see the pitch. So don't make an assumption that you're going to swing at the first pitch. If you assume that you're going to swing at the first pitch, what does a hitter do? They just end up being on their front foot because they're ready to swing at it no matter where it is. They overcommit to it. So I don't know. What's your take on that idea?
I think the hitter's mentality is, yes, like, I'm swinging till I recognize the pitch.
Agreed.
Is not a hitter's pitch. So I know what you're saying. It came off as like, don't be ready to swing. Like, I think you need to be anticipating, like, I'm swinging at every pitch, regardless of where it is. And then once I recognize it, I choose to take, or I choose to give my swing off. But I think when you emphasize, like, we need to see more pitches, we need to get deeper in counts. the first sentiment for a younger player is, okay, I'm just going to start taking pitches. And then if the guy is on his game, he's going to be 0-1, 0-2 to every single guy. And then it becomes nearly impossible to string together hits or have good innings when the pitcher just keeps getting ahead. Like statistically, numbers wise, 0-1 is tougher to hit than 1-0, like, or 0-0. 0-2 is a really tough, 1-2 is a tough count. When you're behind in the count, it's tougher to hit. And when you tell a kid like, hey, you need to see more pitches, like, I need you to see more pitches. Like, I need you to see and swing at better pitches. I don't need you to necessarily see
it's a
more
misnomer.
pitches.
Exactly. Because you don't want the kid to then take a pitch on the outer half that he could drive. That's
Right.
the problem. It becomes a loose interpretation for them of like, oh, coach wants me to take stuff. So you take the first pitch right down the dick. And then you're like, was that good? Like, no. Like at any time, including 3-0, if it's right down the middle, maybe you should swing. So yeah, I think it becomes difficult. That's what I just stressed to them was like, look, if you get your pitch, like what is your pitch? Okay, inner half. If you get your inner half fastball, doesn't matter what count it is, don't miss it. Be ready to drive it. Be ready to hit it. But yeah, like the whole idea of like, I want you to take pitches, it's just really just hopefully means be selective and don't swing anything borderline. If you're going to take a fastball for a strike, make sure it's the outer third fastball. You probably couldn't hit that hard. Like take that one. That's okay. Don't take the one that's right down the middle. Don't take the one that's outer half or inner half. Like put a good swing on those. But take anything that's on the periphery of the plate or that's a borderline ball. And that's the problem that kids get into is they swing at borderline pitches that they just get themselves out on.
And it's confusing.
That's the mindset.
It's confusing to a kid, right? Because like, say, see more pitches means I need to take pitches so I can see them. It's like they're not going to interpret that as like it's okay to swing early if it's good. You need to tell them that. Like you need to be very literal with how you're emphasizing like approach when you're hitting. And the first step is kind of identifying what a good approach is. What are the pitches we're looking for? Fastball almost 100% of the time. Okay, we're looking for a fastball. We're looking for an outer half, outer 2/3. We're taking the inner third. We're attacking everything else. So like set your eyes there. But if I'm telling a kid like, hey, we need to see more pitches, like this guy just had a 4-pitch inning. Well, he threw 4 balls right over the plate. Like we just didn't get hits, or did we swing at 4 balls in the dirt and, ground back to the pitcher? Like there's a difference. There's a definitely a fundamental difference in how you see pitches in a game. And at the big league level, there's scouting reports, there's percentages. Like Kyle Hendricks starts righties off with 40% changeups. Like, so sit on a changeup. Like if you get it, take a good hack at it. If you don't get it, we're going to take it. Whereas in the youth level, we're looking for a fastball, hopefully over the fat part of the plate, swing at it. Like it's a different mindset. So you can't really just tell a kid, hey, I need you to see more pitches, go up there with that mindset. Cause they're just not going to know what to do. They're going to end up striking out or walking if the guy's wild.
Yeah. It's really just like understanding what it looks like, what the trajectory is out of a pitcher's hand that results in a pitch that's borderline. And the best hitters are better at taking the ones that out of the hand, it looks like it's going to be a borderline ball strike. Because they don't want to hit that anyway. They don't want to hit it because they're going to get out. So they're going to take it. So as soon as they identify that pitch is going to be a borderline strike, they take. And now they're not swinging anything on the edges where the pitcher's at the advantage. And then because they don't swing at those, a larger percentage of those are going to go for balls. So now they're seeing more pitches and they're not swinging at bad pitches. So that's a double whammy of improving their odds of getting a hit.
Right.
And that's, I think, what people go for. Like Joey Votto's not swinging on pitches on the black unless it's 2 strikes and he's going to try to foul it off. He's not swinging at a pitch on the black on the first pitch, like ever.
Right.
And neither
he's
Mike
a very
Trout.
good. No, they're very good hitters as opposed to someone who's a very good swinger, where if you throw something in their swing, like they're going to probably do a lot more damage to the pitch than maybe a Joey Votto. But Joey Votto is such a better hitter that he's going to do damage on more pitches.
Okay, interesting. So let's finish with your weird statement on Twitter. You had some. I didn't even understand what you were talking about. It felt like a ramble to me.
Which weird statement are you talking about? I have so many.
The weird statement that What did you say? Something about being
Where
a
I
baseball
said-
player. Read your
where I
own
said-
tweet.
Well, I can't pull it up on my phone right now, but I said, at what point is being a good baseball player, like, where does that rank as far as being recruited by, as a college coach? My overall point was that we don't emphasize being good at the game of baseball, like so many of the nuances of baseball. Like, it came from a discussion I was having with a coach of mine where we were talking about our 17U team, our 16U team, who's probably doesn't have like a top end Division I talent on the team, but they were very good baseball players. All the kids knew where they were supposed to be on the field. Like when you watch a pregame with them, it's very crisp. Like everything is fluid. They just don't have like the top, 88 to 90 arm. They don't have the guy that runs a 6'5". They don't have the guy in batting practice that hits the ball 400 feet. So my point was, like, showcases, and this has kind of been a big thing on Twitter amongst the Jeff Fry Shigon movement. It's like you pay a lot for showcases to showcase individual tools and talent, but there is no way to showcase being a really good baseball player. And I had a conversation with last week. I did one-on-one meetings with coaches, or not coaches, my players.
I was talking to the wrong mic the whole day. Damn.
That's okay. I heard you good.
Guy on YouTube just pointed out. Dang.
But
I was okay. Well, it's better sound now. Sorry. Continue on.
No, say I had a conversation with one of my 17U pitchers he was like 6-1 this summer with like a sub-1 ERA. But he asked me if he should do a showcase. And then before I could respond to him, he goes, I'm not really a showcase pitcher. He's like, they're going to look at me and he's like 80, 82. He's like, I'm not going to stand out at a showcase. He's like, I stand out more like when you watch me in the game. And I agreed with him. I said, he's a very good pitcher, but being a very good pitcher necessarily doesn't get you to the next level that maybe you should go to, or the next level that you aspire to go to, because it's a lot of how good is your individual tool. Like, there's a lot of guys we play with that have really good tools that are terrible baseball players, just instinctually, fundamentally bad baseball players. So my overall tweet was just kind of just throwing the question out to anyone that follows or reads anything that I would tweet out, is like, at what point is being a good baseball player like factor into when you're recruiting someone, mainly at the Division I level? Because there's plenty of good baseball players at a lower level that would take a Division I player's spot with lesser tools.
I don't know that I have a good answer for that, but
because if you're putting a team together,
you need a requisite amount of tools. Obviously, like, you're not going to be 80, 82 pitching in the SEC. Like, we all know that, right? There's occasional outliers, but there's still,
like, there's a basement, right? There's a floor for your tools. And I guess at what point do you factor in like the kid being a good baseball player? So like, if you're a shortstop who runs a 7-0 and you hit 85 off the tee and you throw 85 across the diamond, but you're a state champion, like you're a leadoff guy on a best team, like you are the leader of the team, but then you've got the shortstop who runs a 6'5", throws 95, hits 100 off the tee. Like, that kid's clearly got better tools and bigger upside as a player, but he's a bad baseball player. Like, he has bad at bats. He can't make routine plays. Like, he's never in the proper position. He's not controlling the game as a shortstop. Like, at what point do you take the guy with the lesser tools who's a better baseball player? And I don't know if there's if you're measuring tools, like if the guy is this far below, and anyone that's watching can see me, I'm a little bit below my hands. Like, do you take the better baseball players is slightly lower? Like, at what point where I'm going down on the totem pole of players, does being a good baseball player not trump just better tools overall? I don't know. I was just throwing it out there, and we were just BSing. I don't know, Dan.
Maybe they'll have vaccines that help you become a better baseball player. Just
that was a Dan tweet. Brooklyn was on her game though while you were on vacation.
You leave Brooklyn out of this. Leave her
She
out
was
of this.
tweeting. She was tweeting the hell out of the Coach Dan Blewett Twitter handle.
These are uncorroborated statements. This is fake news. Well, thanks for listening. We are back here live on Friday. Maybe we have a guest, maybe we don't. It's a wild card. You never know.
What more do you need? You come here to listen to us ramble about dumb crap, and this passes your time.
So,
this
Bob,
is
you're
the best baseball podcast.
So you're moving to a new home next week. Is that right?
Monday.
How long do you anticipate the move taking? Do you guys have furniture picked out, or what are you doing?
No. There's no. First of all, I have no say in furniture choices, rightfully so, because mine would be secondhand. We're doing some work that needs to be painted. Floors need to be done. There's all kinds of work that I'll need to be doing before we actually move in. So when you come to Chicago for our live podcast, Dan, from the Mag Mile on Michigan Avenue, maybe I'll be in the house. Maybe I won't be. Probably won't be.
Which is in the works. We'll have some. We'll get a guest from local. Maybe we'll do it from like a looted store. So we'll do it from like the burned out shell of like the Apple store in Michigan Avenue. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Boarded up. They're back.
Boarded up. All right, Bob, send us off, sir.
Thanks for listening. We'll see everybody here on Friday, normal time, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So be there.